welcome to another video. Today I'll be showing you how to do this lovely Christmas card. I'll be using a lot of fun wet techniques. You might have seen it before or you might not. So I'll just watch along and see what I'm doing. Try it yourself, and most important thing, have some fun. That's the key. So you will need quite some materials. I'll be going through them pretty fast so we can focus on how to create this card. Oh, well, it can stay over here. First of all, you need a piece of watercolor card, and I'm using an A5. The measurements are over here, and I folded it in half like this. Yeah, you can also use a single card, A6, but I like it when everything is in one piece. I did not need to glue anything with this way. So yeah, try to find your own way, your own liking. So that's that. This is by the way a 300 grams paper, so that goes over there. Then we'll go to the stamps. Used first of all the Fairy tree path. I used Fox set #1. I used the small branched. Over here I'm gonna do that a little different in this one. I used the tree scene, the fir tree #1, and the big one, the fairy fir tree. So that's for the stamps. I'm just gonna put that over there. Then I have 5 different colors of watercolor. I'm using Daniel Smith watercolors. It doesn't really matter what brand you use, as long as it's a highly pigmented watercolor. I have an Indigo, a Dyk Brown, a titanium white. You can also use how's it called? A red gouache. White gouache also works. You can use an acrylic ink instead of a white watercolor. Everything, that's all fine. It's used to create the snow drops at the end. Most important color, it's called Undersea Green by Daniel Smith. Might be hard to find a similar color in other brands, but let me know if you find one, by the way. Then there's a Quinacridone burnt orange. That's basically it for the watercolors. Then I used some distress mini inks, like the forest moss and the old paper. I used the ice spruce just for a little bit of black soot and a little bit of ground espresso for stamping the tree on the left. Then for stamping the fox, I used the Versafine Clair Nocturne. Yeah, I used some masking tape. You can use also a piece of paper or something like it, but I like this because it's sticky. I got some old washi tape I never use, so I use it to tape the borders. I got some pencils, no, brushes and pencils, but first I got some watercolor brushes. I got a size 4, size 6, it doesn't really matter. You don't need to paint a lot of details. And this one is quite important. It's an acrylic brush, actually. I'm gonna use it for watercolors, and it's Forte Synthetics. That means that it's quite a firm brush, it's not really soft, and it's very convenient for the technique I'm going to use. Got some pencils, like I said before. Just did a little bit of accent with the pencils in the Fox. I got a white. Yeah, in this case I used a Lightfast, a Derwent Lightfast pencil, but well, you can use any brand you want as long as the colors are okay. And a Derwent Chroma Flow. I used the redwood. That's a reddish brown color, and I got a black one. So I got a black one, I got a white one, and I got a reddish brown one. That's quite important. Then I like to use this Copic Multiliner, the brush medium size, to well, the color in the parts that didn't stamp well. That happens to me. So if that happens to you also, this is a very convenient marker. And I think that's almost it. Last thing, well, watercolor palette is useful. And then the final thing, and very important thing, I just gotta get rid of this, is the stamping platform. Don't laugh, mine has tape all over it because I used this tape to tape this one down. I'm just gonna recycle it to go for another round. So that's it for the materials. I don't think I forgot anything, so that's a good, and that's good. And if I forgot anything, well, just watch closely to the video and it will be all okay. So I got my stamping platform over here. I'm just gonna open it, and I got my piece of folded cardboard. I'm just gonna tape this to the sides, to the, no, I'm gonna tape it to the stamping platform, stamping body. I don't know actually what the real word is. I'm just gonna put a little piece over here so it stays closed. It makes the taping down a lot better. It's easier. It's important that when you tape it down, that this has to go. You try to tape it as straight as possible, and that's a bit tricky with my tape because I use the old washi tape that has black in it, and that's pretty hard to see. So you're gonna watch me fuss a bit, but oh well. Let's just hope for the best. No. So I'm now done with the first layer of tape. This tape is only to mask off the white border. If you don't want a white border, yeah, you don't have to tape it, but then you cannot, if you don't tape it, you cannot work on a double-sided card because everything, all the water will go under and the paint will go under and it will be messy. To keep it clean and to make sure it stays clean, I'm gonna put the purple tape on it. As you can see, I used it already. So I'm basically taping the tape now. I'm making sure this purple stuff is not touching my paper because it's too tacky for my paper. It will rip it. That's why I choose this old washi tape. That won't rip my paper, but will keep my borders clean. And taking a bit stronger tape for taping it to the platform and making sure the tape stays everywhere when it gets wet. So, and the final piece. I hope recycling was a good idea. I'm not sure because this already starts to curl up, but we just tape it again. I don't care. I tape everything together. So now we taped the whole thing. I'm gonna start the stamping. So yeah, sit back and relax. It's coming. I'm going to start with the fairy path. Just gonna put that there. This is the one. I'm gonna stamp it straight in the middle, or somehow, somewhat in the middle. I'm just gonna guess like this, or something like this. Yeah. Try to keep it straight. I'm just gonna close my stamping platform, and I'm stamping with the ice spruce distress ink. Why? Because it's a really light color and you don't see the borders anymore. You can also use a hickory smoke or something like that. Doesn't need a whole lot, just a thin layer of ink. Stamp it, check it. Put it over here. Good enough. The rest we'll see later. So I'm just gonna take this one and put it out of the way. Then the next thing, because now the path is in its place, that's marked, we're gonna create some hills. That's where I used the masking tape. Let's see if I can use this. Well, not really. What we're gonna do is we're gonna tear it apart. You can use two pieces, one for over here and one for over there, to create the hills. You can also try to rip it in one piece. So let's see. Smaller hill. And the bigger hill. No, that's fine. I'm just gonna rip it off my roll. I'm gonna place the dent here a bit on top of the path. Like this. I think that's better. There's a little hair there. So I'm just tape it on the paper. Now I need some more tape because this will curl up, because my roll of masking tape is almost at its end and it's not really high tech, so, or high techy, I don't know. So now we have our horizon line that will cover the hills. Oh, I forgot to mention you need a water spray. That's really something we need. And this bugs me. That's better. So now the fun part starts. You will need your fir trees and the little tree scene set. So those go well, to the right side of me. Let's see if I can. No, that doesn't work because I need to show you what I'm doing on the platform. First of all, I'm not really happy because I have no space left at all here. So I'm gonna, that's because my my path is too high. But it doesn't matter, I'm just gonna make the hill a little, you know what? I'll just go with it, it doesn't matter. So, the tree, first tree will go here. And we're gonna only use this part. Yep. Close the stamping platform, take your watercolor Undersea Green. Or, there's a little leftover from before. But that doesn't matter. And now we're gonna play a whole lot. First of all, I'll be wetting my my pen with watercolors, that's the word. not really wet, just a bit sticky. And I apply the paint with my flat paint brush on my stamp. Then I'm going to wet my paper. And yes, you can wet it pretty bad. And I'll let the color flow. Is that weird? Yes. Is it cool? Oh yes. Put some more color. You can help it a bit with your brush. And if you're satisfied with your stain, because that's what it is, for now, if you're satisfied, you can go over to the next one. You can, oh, I did the wrong side. It's pretty stupid. Outlining the edges a bit more, but it's not really important at the moment. For now, it's important that you get a nice glowy green faded background. That's the most important thing. I'm gonna take the other fir tree and I'm gonna put it a bit lower, like this. Yep. It's already wet here, but I'm gonna wet it anyways a bit more when I start to stamp. But first I apply the paint, because I learned, because at the moment it's like 33 degrees here Celsius. But I felt like Christmas, so whatever. Spray my paper again up. Don't be generous with the water. And now I got a pile here. That's also not a problem. Stains just give it a creative effect. Don't be afraid of them. Stamp it again. And just let it. Make it a bit darker here. We're gonna make it dark anyways here down here a bit later. So I'm gonna take the same stamp and put it again a bit lower right here. You see it's already wet because my paint starts flowing already, so that's good. Taking a bit of paint again. Make it more wet because it's flowing on the top but not down here, and down here is also an important part. If your paint flows too far away, if you think, okay, oh no, this is not good, you can take a piece of paper and dab some of the color you don't want. The pretty thing with the Daniel Smith Undersea Green is when you use a lot of water on it, you can see hints of blue, hints of yellow, hints of green, all kinds of different shades of green. That's why I love this color a lot, and that's why I said I'm not sure if you find a color like this in a different brands, but maybe. Just gonna add a bit more. Yay, that's pretty. That's okay. I'm gonna leave it like this. And now I'm gonna use the smaller set with the tree scene. I'm just gonna do exactly the same. I'll be using this one and this one. If you want other ones, be my guest. I'm not yeah, whatever. I'm just gonna put this one over here. I'm gonna do exactly the same. Wet the stamp, wet the paper, paint the stamp. Oops. Oh. If you don't wet the paper, you get this result. That's not really pretty. So, but you can wet it. If you forget it, you can wet it afterwards. That's also not a problem. Let's press your stamp in again. Get a cool water effect. Having a bit of a fight with my jar of water. Well, you can, if you have puddles, you can just take a dry brush, use it as a mop to get rid of the puddles. Oops. Take the different stamp, the other tree, place it a bit higher, like this. And again, apply some paint. I think there's enough water on the paper still. Yeah. There are some tiny puddles I don't want. So just gonna soak them up. The best word, I think. And this goes a bit too dark for me, so I just take it away. Let's see. I used a bit too much pigment for my liking, so I'm just gonna dab it away a bit. This is it. Let it dry. This is yeah, well, for now, for the background. The rest we will do later, I think. What you can do, if you want to, if you use this technique for a different kind of card, you can put some in between as well. Maybe I'll do that just for here. Add one more. Since it's about 30 degrees, there's kind of no need at the moment for me to dry this. I'm just gonna let it air dry. Later I might change my mind when it's not dry yet, but for now it's really fine. I'm just gonna take this piece of masking tape off. Oh, I remember to do that actually when it's dry. That's the mistake I did the last time. So I'm gonna dry it. Be right back. So now I'm gonna take the masking tape off. Carefully, because I want to keep this in one piece so I can use it another time. Sometimes when I have things I like or shapes I like, I just find that helpful. So this is now what we made. When you look at this card, you can see my horizon yeah, is a bit higher, but not even that much. The rest we will do later. We're now gonna focus on the path and on the snow to make it look a bit more realistic already. It helps to get some perspective in what you put where, how dark to stamp. But later I'm gonna stamp some trees over the background I just did. So yeah. First I need my watercolor palette, and I need my Indigo, and I need my Dyk Brown. So here's my Indigo and here's my Dyk Brown. What I'm gonna do is I make a very light mixture of the Indigo here in my palette. So I'm just gonna take quite a lot out of the pen, apply it on my palette, just like that, and add water. Or add water. And then I hope it's light enough. If it's still too dark, don't worry, just take some more water. What we're gonna do with this is we're gonna create some shadow. You can wet the snow first. I did not do it, so just gonna make it take a lot of water, play around with it, make some stains. Like this, up the hill, a bit of shadow. If you use too much water, you can dab it. And then for the bottom part, that's the part where I did something myself. Actually, you can draw it, you can tape it, you can rip it, but I added 2 more stones here. One below and one in the middle. So I'm starting with the one below. That's quite easy to do it like this. Not too hard, not too, just whatever. Add a stone. The rest will follow later. This is quite a big stone I did just now, but doesn't matter. Nothing matters. And we're gonna do one here. As long as you can see them, it's okay. Don't worry about lines or anything. At the moment it's 30 degrees here or even more. So my paper is drying right under me, under my fingers. But I'm gonna add more watercolor. Still with the indigo. If you add more layers, it will end up darker. That's not that hard to understand, I think. I'm gonna put some shading here too. And with water you can dilute the edges. It might sound weird, but fade out the edges. It's better, but it doesn't. Not everything has to be faded. It's also good to know. Gonna add some shade here on the hill, and adding the shade, I'm also pushing it into the trees. Like that. Right. You see it's starting to come already, and it's not even hard. So then I take the Dyk Brown, and I'm going to mark some shade below every stone at the bottom. So basically the iced spruce areas we will make brownish like this. You can add it in layers, and at the top it's basically just a few thin stripes just to separate the stones from each other. And the layers will come also add here. kind of pretty when the brown also flows a bit into the blues. So just do that. And we're gonna apply some more layers, make it a bit darker, get some more dynamics in it. And that's it. So basically I'm painting over the fairy path and I use the stamp as a sketch. That's roughly said the way this works. I'm gonna add some shading in the stones because they're way too white now. And I'm fading it with water. I'm always fading almost everything with water. Add a little bit of brown. So I'm mixing browns and blues. So creating the background is almost done now. There are some effects you can still add with the white watercolor or the white gouache. Don't do this with acrylics because stamping over acrylics is pretty hard. So do that with some white watercolor. For example, here you can make it a bit more cloudy or more soft. The effect is not that big, you won't see a whole lot of it. It's just a tiny funny thing. And when it's dry, you can stamp the big tree there. We're gonna start stamping the little trees, and I just need my piece of masking tape back. Great, so I forgot to press play. Or I forgot to press record, sorry. But what I did is I used the old paper and I used this fir tree and I just stamped some of the tree with in the background to get a little bit more structure in the background and have those tips a bit pointed out. And now I'm gonna take the force mask. Let's just check if I took the right one. It should be. And I'm gonna put this tree over here. Or no, let's take the bigger one. Put it over here in the corner. I'm gonna stamp with Distress Forest Moss to have a darker area there. If you don't think it's dark enough, you might also try to stamp it again with the watercolor. Just make the watercolor very sticky if you want it to be dark. I think it was this side. And you can stamp over and over and over layers to form layers. Make it dark. Dark will make it pretty. Just like that. Oh, this is pretty much dark enough. So stamped again with the Undersea Green watercolor. It depends a bit on what the effects are. Sometimes stamping with the distress can also be enough. You can also put layers with the distress ink. So let's try this one with the Distress Forest Moss. And add a few layers on top of each other. You see it's darkening up already. But I believe with the watercolors it goes a bit faster. If you apply enough paint, of course. Like that. I'm gonna put one here, a dark one. You don't have to make everything dark, and make sure those tips in the background still are still visible. Just with the distress ink again. Great, that's a good one. You can make a very tiny one here. It's also fun. Or here. Yeah, let's make a tiny one here. Just the tip will be visible now. Just the tip of this fir tree. I repeated it a couple of times. Eek. So we can have a nice forest on top of the hill. Okay, I'll do it. Tiny one over there. Of course, be careful. I'll just leave it like this. Not to put ink on the bottom, or cover it with a piece of copy paper or something, because else you will cover your whole bottom with half stamp trees. That will ruin everything, of course. You will understand that. And then for the smaller trees, just gonna put some these are a bit darker than in my original one, so I don't think stamping with old paper like I did in my example will work, but let's see. Old paper. There's background music from coming from my neighbors. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but well, maybe in 2 layers. Add a tiny bit of forest moss on the edges, and that's perfect. Don't touch it anymore. This one I will leave just like it is. Yeah, let's close this. Oops. Yeah, that's it for now with this border. I'm just taping it somewhere where I can find it some time again. We're gonna stamp the big tree over here. Just gonna find it. That's funny. It looks best if you put it halfway there, not like this, but let it fade a bit on the side. That's really not well English. And my tree is a bit more, I want this still to be visible, so I'm gonna be a bit picky now. Well, like this. There's no other way this time, I think. Okay, that's with making cards like this. Every single card will look different, will come out different, will you will encounter different problems. So there's no way making a perfect tutorial with no faults or no surprises, because, well, it's about being creative, and surprises are part of the creative process, I think. So sorry, I stamped this with the Distress Ink Forest Moss, and this will be going in a lot of layers, because this is nothing. Nope, it's nothing. You can take a brush and color it in a bit. You can do that, you don't have to, but I just wanted to show you this. Don't touch the edges, don't. Or I did, by the way. I just flushed it with water again, stamped it in the wet for the first layers. That I forgot, to get the same cloudy greeny effect as in the background, just different. So with Distress ink this also works. So if you don't have any watercolors, you can also try to do this with Distress inks. So, and now I'm just gonna layer everything. And there comes a point like this, because you're using Distress inks, that's a water soluble ink. On top here, there's more than enough ink. It's dark, it's green, but here on the bottom there's still quite nothing. So you can just, and that therefore I like the minis, you can just apply the ink at the part where you need it. No really hard things, just layer it up. Doesn't hurt when it's a bit lighter over there, as long as you see those branches here sticking out in front of the other trees. The other trees here are a bit well, they failed a bit actually, because look over here, you can still see the tree structure, and over here that's totally gone. So I can either stamp on top of it or just leave it. I decide to leave it because I'm afraid it will only get worse. To make it darker, you can even be bold and go in with your ink pad in your tree, or take a brush and a bit of color. We're gonna layer the color as well. I'm gonna take some ground espresso for the stem of the tree, and I'm gonna put a bit at the bottom of the tree as well, just swiping up. Not sure if that's a word, but and layer it. You can also make it darker in one side, for example the left side, Just gonna, it's a bit hard because it's a really thin stem, but you can try to put the color in one part. Doesn't always work, but so it works a little. What you can also do is take your brush, and spill some water. Take your brush and swipe here to take some color out and push it to the edge. But again, you don't have to do that. You can see the parts where my white watercolor is below. My ink fades there, but it doesn't matter. I will just ink it again. I did that with the water. Just ink it again, and it only gives a bit more natural effect in the stem, actually. Let's see if I'm happy with this. I think I am. Gonna water this a bit to make it a bit more glowy, a bit more solid. And then I'm gonna stamp one more time with the forest moss. Just gonna put the brown away. And in the stem, I'm gonna use a bit of black soot. That first. Also, I'm trying one side to make it a bit more darker. Bit more dark, right, just like that. And I wanted to stamp it one more time with the forest moss, but I don't think that's really necessary, so I'm not gonna do that anymore. So now the tree's there, the landscape's almost done, but we need some atmosphere, and the atmosphere you can create with the burnt orange and a paintbrush. What I'm gonna do is I'll wet the sky a bit in the little hill here, in the dent between the hills. I'm just gonna add some burnt orange, and I'm gonna let it flow into the sky. If it doesn't flow, use more water like this. Add your paint and tilt your stamping platform a bit, so like this, and just let it go. Not too far, just a bit. It can be a sunset, it can be a fire. Let's go for the sunset or the sundown. We will put a bit over here as well, as a reflection of the sun. And those reflections are important to create some more atmosphere, because okay, we have an orange spot right there, but that orange spot is making some glows in, for example, here, the stones, lightly. Oh, dirty paper. It's a bit more tricky at the moment because it's really hot, so the paper dries like crazy. But add a bit of that orange in some of the stones. If it's too dark, you take some water and bring the color down. Tone it down, that's a better word, I think. And just like that. And now we're gonna add some glow in the snow. I'm being lazy. It's easier if you dilute it a bit in your watercolor palette, but like I said, I'm being lazy. Just adding some on my paper. If you have a good watercolor paper, you can do it. And just add a little bit of glow. Not too much, but it makes the whole scene more interesting when there are some more colors visible. Not only blues and greens, but some oranges as well. I've been finding it a bit too strong here, so I'm toning it down a bit with water. And because this is a brownish type of orange, it's really, yeah, it gives a real nice feeling to it, I think. Don't know what this is, so but it has to go. If your edges are, oh excuse me, if your edges are too hard, your color is too dark, you can take water, tone it down, and create some effects. So this has to go. Time to clean up and finish up. The atmosphere is okay. The landscape is done. So now I need my fox. Here it comes. And the fox goes right here next to the, nope, I'm forgetting my the, what's it called, the small branch. The small branch I'll be using first, and I'll be using it better than in my example. I'm putting it a bit higher this time, so there's a bit more effect of it. Taking my Nocturne somewhere, yeah. I'm just doing this with an acrylic block and making it stick out a bit more. It makes it look more interesting. And a bit down here. Yeah, that's it. Now for the fox. Where did I put it? Over here. The fox goes just here. A little bit with his butt behind the tree. Be careful because my branches are not totally dry yet, so it's a bit tricky. Yeah. Bit face up, like this. Yay. So I'm gonna zoom in so you can see how I aligned it. You see a bit of the tree stem is going to be covered. I'm closing my stamping platform. I'll be doing this with the platform because, well, if it fails with the black, it doesn't really matter. Can try it again. I just don't want it to fail. Oh, that's supposed to be there. I think there's some hairs on my stamp. And I got some hiccups. That's also not funny when you're doing a tutorial, but oh well. Now this one, because we're going to go over it with some water with some pencils. It doesn't have to be totally covered. Oop. Yeah, this is acceptable. And I'm gonna make the tree a bit darker here, so you don't see what is in front of what. Just a trick. And this will have to dry for a bit. And while it dries, I'm gonna take my white watercolor and I'm gonna put the stamp away because this will only get dirty. Yep, goes over there. This will take some time to dry, and I will be taking my white watercolor. And with the white watercolor, I'm gonna add some more white details. It's best to do that at the last, because you can also see here in my stamp, you can still see it. I thought it wasn't visible, but it still is. And with this we also make the snow, so we can add a bit snow already, since there's still paint in my brush, but the rest we will do later. What we can also do is add some shadow below below the fox. Add some greens here in the corner. In my palette here there's also Undersea Green. That's quite helpful actually. So I'm adding some greens. Should have done that before the stamping. But oh well, oh well. It's funny, I just did the other card and already I forgot some of the things I pull. With indigo, I make it quite dark here below the fox's tail, all the way to the bottom for this layer. And now I'm gonna dry it, everything, because I have to. No, I can still do one more thing. And that's make a border, because over here it's plain white, and when I take my tape off, I want it to have a little bit of a blue glow. So what I'm gonna do is I take my indigo and go all around the borders with the indigo to get some finished border. So I'm gonna add some indigo everywhere. And fade it out with a little water. That was what I was gonna tell just before I hit the brown. Also here in the tree, do add some indigo. Do that. In the sky as well. Don't have to be a whole lot. Just make a dark corner or add a bit. Here is the orange. I don't touch the orange because that will waste my orange glow there. Make it muddy. which can also be fun, but not for now. I'm just gonna turn my work because I'm right-handed and it works best from right to left, left to right. And this is the part where I'm gonna do it a bit different. I'm gonna wet it first because else I cannot make a nice border. I cannot blend it really nice. And if I make it wet first, it will flow by itself. It doesn't need me for it. Like this. And now when I take off the tape a bit later, I have a pretty border all around the card and still have my white spots jumping out. It's barely visible when you look at it like this, but it does a whole lot later. So you can darken the shadows a bit more, maybe here below the trees. Just look at your own shadows and see how dark they are. That's the only advice I can give. But I think mine need to be a bit darker. Maybe I'll go very bold and use some indigo straight out of the pen. Indigo is really dark, really pretty and really dark. But it looks so good. Yay. That's you can do that everywhere to darken your shadows. Take some pure indigo out of the pen or whatever you use to make it dark, and make it dark. So now I'm gonna dry it. So close your ears. So my fox is not stamped really pretty. You can see some stains. Doesn't really matter, I think, because I'm gonna cover it with pencil anyway. It is dry, so that's good. Just checking. And I'm gonna take my red pencil, red brownish pencil, and with the red brownish pencil I'm just gonna go into the fox and give it some color. Only at a few spots. For a bit on the snout, tiny bit into the ear, at the back here. Can use some color. Well, you can still see it, but I have a black pencil as well. On top of the tail. Here on the hip, but that's funny because on the hip there's my stain. Now I can add a little white on top of the red in some places to make it a bit lighter, even more lighter, even more light. English. And if you think, okay, that's too much, take the red again, go over it and make it less. And then I have the black one as well. I'm gonna create a hip because he's sitting, so I'm gonna make this black again, add a little shadow. I hope this is visible. That's another thing. Yeah. If it's not visible, it's too bad. I'm just playing around with the pencils until I like the effects. If you use good quality pencils, you can do a whole lot here. If you made it too light, you can tone it down. Got my black as well, so you can even do it with rub it with your finger a little, but be careful, you can make stains. Maybe some more lighter hairs at the tip of the tail. And I think this is it. It looks, from where I am sitting, it looks pretty cool. So then, take a look. Take a good look. Are your shadows deep enough? Are you satisfied with your work? If yes, add the snow. I'm not. I still have some shading to do there, I think. So I'm gonna take my indigo straight out of the pen. I'm gonna dive in here. Make it darker. It's a bit tricky here because I also used the white watercolor already. So there's some funny things happening. But oh well. It's gonna soften the edge a little. This should be it. I'm gonna dry it, and then I'm gonna add the snow, and then we're done. So for the snow, I'll be using my white watercolors. You can also use a white acrylic ink. When you use acrylic ink, it's really important that you use it the latest as finishing touch, because you cannot go over it with watercolors. But you saw already that my white watercolors caused me a tiny bit of problems as well. So it's not really, it's a different substance, I think. Thing is, when you use the white watercolor, you get a watery effect. Not every drop will be the same strength, the same color, and it will take on a bit of the color from the distress ink. If you don't want that, use the acrylic ink. If you want that, use the watercolor, and or combine them both. I might just do that. So I'm gonna go in with my brush, make a thick mixture. First it has to be really wet, and then I'm gonna dab it with my I want some in the fox, but not too much. You can take something to hit with to add some more. If you do that, it's gonna splash everywhere, even in my face. So fun. I'm gonna dry this and then take a look how it looks to see if I add some more acrylic drops. Everything is now dry and I kind of like the result, especially down here. I could use some more at the top, but I'm gonna do it again with the watercolor and not with the acrylic ink because I'm almost happy. So just a few more snow, bit more snow at the top, and that's it. So now we have our own Lavinia Christmas card. You can just remove all the tape. Mine is dry. Make sure if you remove the tape, make sure your paper is dry. I have some splashes here now. That doesn't really matter. I'm not gonna recycle it anymore. And just with the purple tape, I don't have to be careful. The only thing that I can rip is basically the tape itself. But when removing the washi tape, make sure your paper is dry, your ink is dry, so no accidents can happen. For me, I have some wet spots still, but hey, I just take the risk. I got one already. Now I still want this one to be pretty, of course. It's a tiny piece here, like that. So, and I really showed you everything there is if you want to make this card. It's well, it's look, there it is. It's not hard to make this card, but it's not a card you make in 5 seconds. But hey, Lavinia people, I think, are used to making more complicated projects. So oh, I hope you can see both. I hope you like this tutorial, and I hope you are certainly gonna try it yourself and make something really, really, really pretty out of it. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time on a different tutorial. Bye bye.